views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Time Warner Cable.
Hello and welcome to The Bottom Line. My name is Dana Connors, and it's my pleasure to be your host once again for this monthly program brought to you by the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. Each month, as you have been accustomed to know, we take a look at some of the initiatives, the issues at work in our state, sometimes to address the barriers, but more often than not, trying to look at the opportunities. This past month, and we continue today, we looked at initiative, and we are looking at initiative that offers great hope for the state of Maine. But what are some of the issues and some of the problems? And that's what we examined last month as we took a look at the importance of access to service, as we examined the speeds and the standards that are relevant, as we looked at cost and affordability. We came to understand there is much the state has done to put us in a very competitive position, but there's more to do. And more to do is what we're going to focus on today. We're going to take a look at those parts of our state that are unserved and underserved. And we're going to try to answer the question, how big a problem is that, and what are we doing about it? And we're going to examine that by looking at how much federal dollars we get, who's at play, like Connect Maine Authority and Fairpoint Communications, who are trying to meet those needs in particular. How about the role of municipalities? Also, regulations as well as competition factors in. When does one become more relevant and appropriate than the other? These are the questions that we hope to be able to seek out and provide answers for. We're going to begin with Dick Thompson. For many of you, Dick Thompson is a familiar name around state government, worked there for 33 years. A good part of it as Chief Information Officer, distinguished himself, by the way, on a national basis for what he was able to do in Maine. Now he's doing it at the University of Maine system. He's on the board at Connect Maine Authority. Dick, it's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
It's nice to see you, Dana.
Connect Maine Authority, established what, 2006?
2006, 10 years ago.
And it's been given some real authority to try to help address this unmet need, the unserved as well as the underserved. Can you tell us what the responsibilities and the role of Connect Maine Authority is?
The Connect Me Authority has always had a responsibility to focus on and expand the access to broadband services, to internet services, to communities and to businesses and the public throughout Maine. That is something we've been working on for that entire 10 years. This year and last year, with some changes in the legislature and in our enacting legislation, we've really begun to focus on what is it we can do to improve the level of service that's provided to not only municipal and urban areas, but to rural areas in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, and in this past session, 127 carried over this year, as you pointed out, the legislature really, I felt, kind of gave you a boost. It gave you a responsibility that said, you know, when we look at these unmet needs, underserved needs as well, that we need to look at it, create a plan, provide a strategy, look at it in 3-year increments, and tell us what you're going to do. That has been accomplished. That report has been forthcoming to the legislature, and that's what we're operating on now. Is that correct?
That report has just been very recently published within the last week, and yes, it has been something that really creates a target for people to focus on, not only in how to plan for and take a look at, and how do we create economic development by expanding our broadband capacity, but also how do we take care of those rural areas which just don't have the capacity today to support the needs.
Speaking of unserved or underserved, last program that we had, I got into this very confusing, challenging area of what speed. You look at the national level, there's a 25 download, upload of 3 megabits. when you looked at where we stand, and we stand pretty well. We stand in the middle of the park when you look up in the middle of the park. We probably stand in the middle of the park as well, but in the middle when it looks and evaluates us compared to the rest of the nation, that's good. And even when you look at our state that does not have broadband, we are in line with the national average. And what we found was there's a lot of, and then you come out with a 10-10, 10 up, 10 down, symmetrical, and an aspirational goal. And I found that there was a lot of confusion around that, and it depends on how good we are and how effective we are depending on which service or which speed you pick. But in reading for this show today, I found that you have put in place a definition that I'd like to have you share that on one hand says if you're under 1.5 megabits, then you are unserved. If you're between 1.5 and 1010, you are underserved. Above that, you're what classified as served. Can you talk about that a little more and tell me if what I just said is accurate and the meaning of that?
Well, I'll try, Dana, and I agree with you. If you're at 1.5 or less, you really are not served. You're not able to use the internet for the kind of things that you would want, both socially and in a business or education format. So clearly that is not being served. And we find mostly our rural areas, and not a lot of them, but they're so difficult to serve. In the unserved area, those things between 1.5 and 10, and that's on download speed, that is an area where we've made some investment, others have made investment, and it is serviceable for a lot of the different things that people need to do, but we know at some point we need to bring that level of service up. 10 over 10 is a standard that's been in place for over a year that the Connect Me Authority approved. And we did that for a couple of reasons. One, it's important for us not to invest our money in just bringing us up to the level that we're at, that we need today, but rather to be focused on what's going to work for the long term. Yeah. You'll notice that instead of being 25 over 3, we chose 1010, which is a symmetrical service. And we see that as important because then it doesn't challenge a business user or a high-end consumer in their upload speeds, their ability to do video conferencing and other high-end work that accumulates and transmits lots of data. So we chose that, somewhat aspirational, but also that's where we want to invest our money wherever we can.
And you also set up some goals in which you hope to be able to meet these needs by, as I recall, 2018. That's part of your strategic plan. Let me talk a bit more about what you just mentioned, the 1010. When it was brought up last time, I was one of those who expressed a reservation, not because it was aspirational, not because it would do more, or any of the reasons that you mentioned. It's just that as a nation, we're marching towards a similar goal of 25.3. And the 1010 is far more ambitious, will serve us better, our economy, our people. But we've got to be careful not to market ourselves as a failure because we're probably 38 or 40% reaching the 1010, whereas on 25.3, we're in very good standing in the middle of the pack. That would be my biggest concern, is not the ambition or the aspiration, but how we market ourselves, that we're in the pack based upon the national standard, but we're trying to do better than the pack. We're trying to put ourselves up front.
We are, and I agree totally. In fact, a number of the statistics, we're about midway in comparison with other states and how we adopt internet, how we have computers in people's homes, how they have access to internet service. So I think we're definitely making strong strides and a very positive outlook for Maine. And for us, we can't forget to talk about that. And in this latest strategic plan, we actually highlight that, yes, there are things that we've done that are really exceptional, and this is a way for us to continue and even provide leadership.
That's great, because so much of the publicity you read, admittedly it's anecdotal, but you read it nonetheless, it puts us at 48, 49, 47, and that's far from the truth. No matter what the measurement is, we seem to be doing pretty well. We're just not giving ourselves the credit we deserve. Another area I wanted to explore with you, because I think it's very helpful, one of the things I want to talk about is the role of federal money and the cost that it takes to implement the service that we want. And you have set up a couple of grants that are imminent in April that you can apply for. One deals with the infrastructure possibilities of the unserved. The other deals with the planning to meet the underserved, that municipalities need to be a part of it. Talk about that.
Yes, we have, through the new legislation, responsibility not only to look at and take care of as many rural customers, if you will, and provide that level of service, or help third parties, help our providers provide that service, but also to really look forward and understand what it is that a municipal government or a community or collective group of communities could do to enhance the services that they already have available. And there are a number of reasons. They could do that to contain cost, to improve economic development, to attract new population. All of those things are good. By doing that kind of evaluation, and we recommend right up front, talk to the local provider, because the people that are there, they know what's available and what their planned investment is. I think you'll be hearing about that, and it's really good. They're really doing a good job.
Well, you know, that's so true, because I think I ended the show last time by reminding all of us that this is an issue that requires conversation. You've got to go with the data. The facts have to lead you. And at the end of the day, you need that plan. And municipalities need to be a part of that, and we hope to explore that a little more. I might have touched upon this, but I'd like to talk with you a little bit more. You've got, the Connect America has a 10-1. How do you reconcile that with your goal tends to be the 10-10 goal? How, if you're working with them, their goal is a 10-1, how does that get reconciled, or does it really matter if you're working to improve that service?
I can tell you to potential users who have no service, 10-1 would be extraordinary.
Yep.
There is an opportunity that the federal government is funding through one of our providers, and Fairpoint, that will make a dramatic impact on the services that are provided.
Yep.
We believe, and it's focused on rural, the areas that are the most difficult to serve. I think we do have to serve both groups, those that are rural, and 10-1 will be a dramatic improvement for them. And I think that we have to create that opportunity to plan for the future for those metropolitan and urban areas that really think that there's a brighter future for them.
So it's fair to say that you do work with them in terms of reaching, the two entities work together in terms of reaching this element, this part of our community, our state that's unserved or underserved. It's important that
It's important that we look at that in its totality, not any one individual component. And we, in our strategic plan, commit to working with Fairpoint so that we understand where it is that they'll be able to go, and how can we, with our rural approach, or the money we use for rural communities, how can we push that even further? I think this is a good period for the citizens of Maine, particularly in the rural area, and for those that really want to make a difference in communities.
That is a perfect way to end it, and as usual, you've been extremely informative, and I am grateful to you for being on the show to help us.
It's my
Thank
pleasure.
you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about the partner that he just mentioned, Fairport Communications. They, too, have an instrumental role in meeting the needs of the unserved as well as the underserved. Thank you. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My name is Dana Connors, and this month we continue to explore the value, the importance, and some of the issues surrounding broadband, high-speed internet service to our state. We're going to continue the discussion that was a part of our first segment that looks at meeting the unmet need of our state. And to do that is the other part of those major efforts underway to do just that. Our two people from Fairpoint Communications, I'd like to welcome at this time, Mike Reed, CEO. Pleasure. Jeff Nivens, who has a lot to do with the community development of broadband in the state, as well as being the external regulatory director. That's a mouthful, and it's a big business card.
It certainly is.
Guys, you play a very important role, just as Connect Maine does. I say Connect Maine, Connect Me Authority, in that you have responsibilities you've developed under the Connect America. And I want to talk about that in a moment. Before we do that, there is efforts underway in the legislature to recognize what's happening in the telecommunications industry today. And Mike, I want you to talk about it in a minute, but let me set it up in this way. In the state of Maine, 2011, 2012, we started to deregulate the telecommunication industry. Well, I should say partially deregulate, because you had a responsibility, a provider of last resort. You still had to meet the regulatory oversight of the PUC. That's where you stand today. In the meantime, competition is a factor of regulation. If you have good competition, you help to meet the safe, reliable service that regulations do. There is legislation that kind of recognizes that. It's been supported by the public advocate, a stakeholder group. Tell us about that and the significance of that.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. First, I have to tell you what a great job the 125th did to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And it was very meaningful to our company to be able to compete price-wise. We did have this other obligation, as the state of Maine should. We have people who do not have choices, and we need to continue to watch out for that. But as we progress through the 126th and now the 127th, there's recognition. Competition is continued. Regulation, as we all know, is a substitute for competition. More competition, less regulation. We have a bill, actually it'll be voted on this afternoon, I think, that continues that path. And it is approval of the Public Advocate, the Public Utilities Commission, all of our competitors, and all of the telecommunications providers. So this is allowing a path forward for the state to continue down this process of matching regulation, competition, and the needs of our consumers.
Well, and as I understand it, it's kind of a test case too. You've identified 25 municipalities who have that competitive service based on population and so forth. And expand upon that. What is
Well,
that?
466 identifies the areas that we all know are fully competitive. Portland, I mean, how many competitors can you choose from? Those have been agreed upon with the Public Advocate. These are competitive. Then there's the process, the PUC will create a rule for how we move forward. So as competition expands into other areas, there'll be a process that we can all go through. Consumer protections are still there.
Yeah.
It is mandatory.
Safe, reliable service is still a mandate.
Yes, not only are the state agencies, the PUC and the OPA watching out for consumers, Fairpoint for consumers, and the legislative committee is. So it's a very careful investigation, but this is a path forward that I have not seen since the 125th.
And doesn't it also follow a pattern that other states are following? As I just read coming into the program today, that 17 other states have gone away with the polar requirements when they have that competition in place. So we're being consistent with what's happening nationwide.
It's even more so than that, Dana. There's actually 36 states, I think, that have started to deregulate, but they're all in various stages. We're very well down the path of deregulation. So
I want to switch attention. I'm going to include you, Jeff, but I need to follow through on this. We talked the first time in the first segment about what Connect Maine was doing and how they defined the level of service. I brought up in that segment that you have received money under the Connect America Fund, part of FCC, significant amount of money with the goal of reaching out 35,500 units. That's significant. Talk a bit about it, because I think that is an extreme expression of commitment to meet the unserved as well as the unserved. Talk about that.
It's the best news story we've had in the state for a long time. When we can get some federal money in here to help expand our network, it's a great news story. I want to just take a second to say Maine should be proud of the network we have. And of course, I'm most proud of Fairpoint's network, but let's not forget our competitors.
Yeah.
The statements we all make when we're trying to attract business and keep business, I don't care where you are, I don't care what your business needs are, one of us can meet those needs. And Fairpoint has spent a lot of money to expand that. We've expanded broadband. We continue to expand broadband. Every one of the providers out there is expanding broadband today, absent Connect America money.
Yeah.
So that's, I just want to set the stage for that. So the Connect America Fund is so important, as Mr. Thompson mentioned. It's targeted at rural areas. It's targeted at very expensive areas. And I won't get into the details. I urge people to look at the map that's available. But we're going to build a new 35,500 locations, a minimum of 10 over 1. There's some latency requirements, et cetera. That's a great news story,
That is
in
a great
addition
news
to
story.
what we're already doing and the other providers are doing. To get back to your question about Connect Maine, they're trying to reach the unserved, and we're working as closely as we can with you can imagine the enormity of the engineering project with what we have to
can.
do. So it's a great news story, Dana, that, and people have heard me speak many times. We need to get all the federal money we can get,
Well, absolutely.
match it with whatever state money we think we have, and then if the municipalities need or want more, we can work
Good.
with them.
Speaking of municipalities, that's your cue, Jeff. There's a lot of activity out there, interest by municipalities. Dick spoke about a grant, which I think is the most significant role municipalities can play, rather than to build. There may be occasion when they would, but more is to help the planning. You guys have had great success in working municipalities. Without taking more of your message, take it away.
We have been working with a large number of communities all over the state, different size communities. And one of the things that we've tried to do, Dana, is basically not go in and tell them how to do it, but to make sure that they understand what they have in their community. Very important that they understand the network infrastructure they already have. That sets up an opportunity for them to set goals and objectives at the local level. Without knowing what you have in your local community, it's hard to set goals and objectives. We also give them some guidance in terms of how to do that. We think they should look at the whole community, not just the business district and pull off parts of the business district. They should look at the residential and business needs of the community, sort of a holistic approach to it. And we help them through that process, give them suggestions. If they go down the route that they want to do something locally, we'll work with them. We're more than willing to partner. Many communities have gone out and put out an RFP, and we've helped guide them in terms of what they do with the RFPs and how they structure those so that they get the information that they need to make decisions. But it's just one of those things that's a byproduct of what's happening and the importance of high-speed internet.
Well, and I think both of you have reinforced it, and Dick it as well. There is a partnership relationship here, and I think that my comment is not intended to criticize a municipality, but because of the awareness that broadband high-speed means to the lives and the livelihood of people and the economy of the state, there's an element of frustration, of anxiety. They get out front, some get out in front of it. Again, I'm not saying it intending to be critical. It's just that I think what you've expressed and what Connect Maine is trying to do with their grant is to have them be part of the solution, to really understand what the data says, what the experts say that what you already have, what you need. There may be a role for them to participate in the cost, but their major role is the planning. I frankly would be full of anxiety of knowing how quickly your industry changes and technology changes to have a debt over my head. So I think that planning role is so critical, and again, I apologize for repeating. It's not my intent to criticize anybody for trying to meet the needs of an area, but I think I reinforce the point that this is about all of us, and we need to be a partner if we're going to be successful, and you guys point that out very effectively.
Every community is different. That's the
That's
one
a good
thing. There's
point.
no one size that fits all. So
Yep.
every community is unique. Every community has different needs. So that's why it's very important for them to get the information on the front end so that they can look at their community and say, here are the needs we have in our community, and here's how we're going to begin to put together a plan to address those needs.
Yeah. So your bill is up today.
Yes.
In the committee,
In the committee, yes.
and you expect, that's good. That is a pretty significant movement forward, and
I'm thrilled, I really am.
well, you've lined up all of the right players, and even those who have reservation, it seems to me that there's more concern about the safe, reliable, predictable service. Is that correct?
And as I said earlier, consumer protections are still there.
Still in place.
Competition is what's going to regulate price and service, and
Yeah.
we all know if you don't like your service,
Well-
you act with your feet. You go to your
That's
next provider.
absolutely. I mean, the
Yes.
one thing about this we all forget, at the end of the day, it's a consumer product.
Yes.
Affordability plays a major factor in whether you do or not. We've all heard examples, and you probably have experienced some, where you have lines that go by your street, but people aren't signing up to it because of the question of affordability.
One thing I might mention is in all of the work that Jeff and his team have done, people, the towns or municipalities don't realize how much fiber they already have.
That's it.
And they don't realize how much broadband is there.
Yeah.
And what we're finding is over half, generally speaking, of the customers are, we call it undersubscribed. They have higher speeds available that they've chosen not to take. So.
Well, guys, that pretty much brings this segment to a close as well, and I thank you immensely for helping us share the very positive news and the promising future that lies ahead for us. We're going to be right back with my closing comments right after this. As we close out the program last month, I think I used this term. The need for broadband, high-speed internet service is self-evident, but the solution is not. You know what, after hearing this program today, I wouldn't characterize it in the same way. Oh, of course, the need is evident. I mean, whether we're talking about having businesses be competitive in this global economy, whether it's healthcare, education, whether it's helping our aging or attracting our young, there is no question the importance of broadband cannot be overstated. Now, I'm talking about the other part. I would say that the solution is very promising, because there is a pathway forward. There is a plan in place, that plan to serve the unmet need, those unserved as well as those underserved. There are target dates for completion. There are speeds that are relevant, that'll fit the need. And you know what? There's a partnership in place, evolving, that'll help us get the job done. You see already with the commitments that have been made by the private sector and the priorities that they have given to this issue, as well as government, we stand today in the middle of the pack. Not at the bottom, I repeat, in the middle of the pack. But you know what? If we stay the course, if we remain committed to the plan that we've heard about today, we won't be in the middle of the pack, we'll be at the top. And you know what? That's good news for me. That's our bottom line for this month. I want to thank my guests. I want to thank all of you for the privilege of your time and your attention. Next month, we're going to be right back here, and we're going to be talking about, in retrospect, the legislative session and take a look at the finances of state government. Until then, have a wonderful month. I look forward to seeing you. Take care.